Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. Consider checking out the Teach the Geek to Speak Society. It's a monthly membership where you can get ongoing public speaking support. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that is teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Holly Hester-Reilly. She is a founder and CEO of H2R Product Science. She works with startup founders and product leaders to figure out which product growth opportunities they should pursue. She came up with a framework called the Product Science Method to do just that. I'm really interested to learn more about her life as a product manager, her motivation for starting H2R Product Science, and of course, her take on public speaking. Welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Holly.
Thank you, Neil. I'm so excited to be here.
And I'm excited to have you here. So from the bit of background digging that I did on you, I saw that you got your bachelor's in chemical engineering. What was the motivation to get that degree?
So when I was in high school, I loved chemistry and math and physics. And so when it was time to decide, what to study in college, I thought that chemical engineering would be a good application of those three areas. And I had sort of dreamed of being a part of what I think of as the frontiers of science. I dreamed of being a researcher or moving forward, developing new techniques for things and helping the world understand science better through the area of chemical engineering.
Gotcha. But you didn't stop there. You got a master's too. What was the motivation for getting the master's?
Well, to be honest, I actually fell in love with lab research, and I entered the MS PhD program. And so I was planning to get a PhD, and I had started doing lab research the summer between my sophomore and junior year of college, and I kept doing it all the way through the master's degree. Unfortunately, I actually failed out of the PhD program. So I wasn't able to stay because I struggled a lot with taking the qualifying exam. I have occasionally struggled with panic attacks, and I had one during the exam and then wasn't able to pass it. And so they didn't let me stay for the PhD, and I had to figure out, well, what else am I going to do? But I got to keep the master's, which has been great.
Wow, that's so unfortunate. Although we have not proceeding with a PhD in common. So I got a bachelor's and a master's, and then I started a PhD program, but I never got to the point of even taking the qualifying exam. I realized after that first year, I didn't want a PhD at all. So,
Yeah.
so there's no need to even continue on to even go to that qualifying exam part. But
Well, good for you to figure that out.
Well, yeah, yeah. After the year, I figured, I'm just gonna leave. And plus, at the program that I was at, I had enough credits to get a master's, so I left with the master's and just kind of like you had to figure out what I was going to do afterwards. But getting a PhD was not part of those plans.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, by the time I left, I was like, this is the right thing for me anyways. Like, I should not be doing this.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm glad that there's no regrets there, because sometimes people can be like, well, man, what could have been? But you know what? It worked out for you. It seems. So you worked for a number of years as a product manager. So what exactly does a product manager do? And I'm guessing that maybe wasn't your plan coming out of school, but I'm curious to find out what a product manager is.
Yeah, absolutely. So a product manager, specifically in the software industry, works at the intersection of business, the users, and the engineers. And so a product manager is a person who really is focused on discovering what is the most valuable product we could build for our end users. And the reason why that also touches on engineering is because you have to work with the engineers to actually deliver it. And you have to be able to understand what's feasible or what are the feasibility risks, and help the company make the decisions about which opportunities they should be going after, and how are they going to maximize the business outcomes that they want.
Huh. So you worked as a product manager in the software industry with a degree with degrees in chemical engineering. Was that a tough sell at all?
Yeah, it took me a little while to crack my way in. But what happened was when I left grad school, I got involved in tech startups, and I fell in love with the tech startup community here in New York. And I just was like, this is better than chemical engineering, because chemical engineering is in many places very regulated industries, and also um, just not jobs you find in cities. And I love living in New York City. And so those two things had made me realize that
Yeah.
as much as I enjoyed studying chemical engineering, the actual practice of it wasn't quite the right fit for my life. But the tech industry was, it was thriving. It was in the early days, sort of the young blood of New York City tech, especially pre 2008 crash, and getting to be a part of that scene and seeing all the energy that everybody in it had, and how sort of there was this, I like to call it rebellious feeling to it at the time, because before the 2008 crash, if what you wanted to do was to be quote successful, or make a lot of money in New York, you went to Wall Street. And so if you were in tech, then you were a person who was choosing not to do that.
Huh.
Nowadays, of course, people who want to make a lot of money in New York often go into tech. So, because the industry has grown so much that now it is a path that a lot of people think of. But back pre 2008, it was a little more niche.
So are you telling me that if there were jobs for chemical engineers in New York City, would you have stayed a chemical engineer, or were you going to tech regardless?
Going to tech regardless, because I did actually work as a chemical engineer in New York City
Okay.
for about 2 years. And I worked in environmental engineering for the city of New York. And what I found was the pace was just far too slow for me. It was, it was not cutting edge work. It was so different from what it was like to study and to do research. And the pace of tech is light speed.
Gotcha. Yeah, you know what? I don't blame you. It's difficult to, especially if you're coming from a city, to then go to maybe behind God's back somewhere to have a
Mhm.
job. Especially if you have no family, you're single, you have no kids, you're just there by yourself, and you have to go to this place, and it's just like there's nothing to do but just work. And you go home, it's like, okay, well, now what do I do? But at least
Yeah.
if you're in a city like New York, obviously, one of the, if not the biggest city in the U.S., then second. I don't know if it's bigger than LA or not. It's just one of the two. But I
Mhm.
mean, there's always something to do. So if you're able to have the best of both worlds, you're working a job that you like, and you're living in a city where there's always something going on. I mean, what's not to like?
That's how I see it.
So then you eventually you decide to start your own thing, H2R Product Science. What was the motivation for starting your own business?
So I've always loved coaching. When I was growing up, I was a competitive figure skater, and I was very fortunate to have, private skating lessons. And I was so impacted by my coaches. They were a central figure in my life. And I learned about the art of coaching, throughout my youth after all those years of being coached. And I started coaching others when I was just a teenager. So, back then it was coaching them in figure skating, which I continued to do throughout some of college and grad school. And then I started coaching people on chemistry and tutoring. And then once I got to a place in product management where I was able to be helping others really well with product management, then I started coaching people around me in product management, just informally mentoring people in the office. And I've just found that was one of my favorite parts of the job, was teaching others how to do it well and helping them get through their challenges and do it better. And in particular, I really love workshops. I love collaborative work where people are being creative together, and I love facilitating those conversations. So I volunteered to do that at one of the companies I was working for the entire department of product managers and user experience designers. And I put together a workshop for them, and it was one of my most fulfilling career projects. And so after I did that, I sort of was bitten by the bug. It was like, oh, I really want to do more of this. And I kind of, bided my time for a couple of years, plotted out what it might look like, and then took the leap and started back in January of 2017. Um, and it's been amazing.
Wow. So you were a competitive figure skater. You want to know something, Holly? When I was a child, when I was in elementary school, we used to, during the winter months, every other week, I think, or maybe once a month, for gym class, we had to go to the local recreation center and skate. And
Wow.
I used to hate it because I couldn't skate. And
Yeah.
both of my parents, they're immigrants from the Caribbean, so they know nothing about skating either. They were
Hmm.
able to find me these secondhand skates. To this day, I have no clue where they found those skates from. I didn't even know how to tie them up. One of my
Yep.
classmates had to help me, tie. You're supposed to tie them tight to make sure that they stay
Yeah.
on your feet. I didn't know any of that because I wasn't tying them properly. So
Hmm.
I have to get up on this ice. I spent the whole time just falling down and just holding onto the
Yeah.
right way. It's like this,
Hmm.
this isn't fun to me. Can we play some softball instead? Like, come on, man, some solid ground. Help me out here.
Yeah, totally.
But something else you also that you said kind of sparked this next question. So you tutored in chemistry, and then you also you coached in figure skating. Those are things that you had this background in. So you come with this chemical engineering degree to work as a product manager. You don't necessarily have that background in product management coming in the gate. So what did you do to get the knowledge to be able to coach in product management?
Read. I read a lot. And then I applied what I read. And I basically, the more years of experience I had under my belt trying to apply what I was reading and just learning by trial and error, or by, also going to talks and listening to people talk and conferences and things like that. Um, the more years that I had under my belt, the more I was able to coach others by sharing my experiences.
Got it. All right, that certainly makes sense. But then I mentioned in the intro that you came up with a framework called the Product Science method. Are there other frameworks out there? And just out of curiosity, how does your framework differ from theirs?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the most commonly known frameworks is the lean startup approach, which is build, measure, learn loops. Um, and there's also the framework of design thinking, and uh, what I think of Marty Kagan's framework of empowered product teams. Uh, and then yeah, so there are several frameworks out there, but they have slightly different goals than mine. I think that build, measure, learn, the lean startup framework, um, it's all about how to really quickly figure out what is the most valuable thing that you should be building. And that is super important, but I think that that framework doesn't teach enough of how do you actually then go build it. So it doesn't have enough of the steps. It doesn't have enough guidance in the area of, well, okay, you've experimented your way to finding something that's a hit. What does it look like to actually bring that to market? What does it look like to build that out to a production ready state? Um, Similarly, design thinking is very much about understanding and empathizing with the users and thinking through different spaces and um, being creative. And so that also focuses a lot on how you figure out what to do or how you design the solution. Um, but doesn't really have an opinion on how you deliver the solution. And then while I'm speaking of delivering solutions, I have to mention agile software development in general, and Scrum and Kanban in particular. Those have a very strong opinion on how you deliver a solution, but don't have strong opinions on how you discover what's the right solution to build in the first place. So my framework, the product science method, it really combines the best of these different worlds. It draws on them and acknowledges that it comes from these places, but it's really more holistic in that it's, a product manager is concerned with both discovering the right solution to build and delivering that solution and coaching the team to deliver that solution. And with the product science method, you get the full package.
Got it. So then the work that you do with your clients, what does that look like? And what do they, I guess, once they're done working with you, what do they have?
So a lot of the work that I do with my clients is around what we call product opportunity assessments, which is how you discover what is the most valuable thing to be building. And that I follow a framework within the product science method. I have a little acronym that I call OOMPH, UMPF, which is who are the users, what is the market for it, what is the product idea that you think might solve their need, and how feasible is that product idea. So I help people do product opportunity assessments that look at those four aspects of the product, and then they're able to compare and contrast different opportunities and make a decision about which direction they should send the product in. Um, and then I help them actually work out, how do they do that? How do they communicate with the engineers and the designer? How do they guide the team through the design sessions? How do they guide the team through making launch plans, making go-to-market plans? How do they lay the right foundation for things to scale and operate so that the sort of the beautiful machine of the entire software engineering team operates well and delivers good products to market?
Hmm. Holly, whenever people tell me about using acronyms to, I guess, what's the word? As shorthand for various things, for a process, for instance, I'm always thinking to myself, man, they probably have to work to make that work. UMPF. It's like, oomph. It's like, what can the F stand for? I really want that F in there.
Yeah. I
That
know in
works.
my case, it was, I had the four things and then I was like, which order do I write these in? And I always start with the user. So it had to start with you. And then I was like, can I make anything interesting with this? And then I realized I could.
Yeah, oomph it is. Nice.
Yeah.
Then I also, from looking into your background, I saw that you have a podcast called the Product Science Podcast. So what was the motivation for starting the podcast, and what do you hope people get out of it?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. So the Product Science Podcast is a podcast where people are able to listen in on conversations between me and product leaders from all different walks of life. And I really wanted to share. I had so many just motivating and inspiring conversations with people as I built my business and as I reached out to understand what opportunities there were in the space of product management training and consulting. And I wanted to share those. I thought it was a shame that they were, just between me and another person, because I know that there are so many people who would love to be able to listen in on that. So I decided to make a podcast. And what I hope that people get from it is, I hope that they get inspiration. I hope that they feel a little bit less alone. I hope that they feel a little bit more like, okay, this is a hard job, but I can make a difference. I can make it better. I can push my company to do a better job of product management. And here are some stories I can be armed with to help me make that case.
Got it. Well, as a trainer and consultant, I assume that speaking in front of others is something that you have to do. Is that something that you've always been good at? And if not, what'd you do to get better at it?
Yeah, no, I was not always good at it, for sure. When I was growing up, I was definitely shy, and I had a hard time speaking in front of the class. If I had to do a presentation in school, my heart would start racing and I might start shaking a little bit, and I would be nervous to talk in front of the class. But as I developed my product management skill, I also developed my speaking skill, because to be a product manager, you have to do a lot of speaking in front of rooms. And I basically got the chance to just sort of start small, start by being regularly presenting in front of the team of software engineers that I'd work with. So that might be a team of 5 to 8 people, and having that become a routine thing that I do every day, or every week, would really helped me calm down about speaking in front of groups of people. And then I got to speak in front of larger groups of people at work, basically, having a chance to present to a department or the company as a whole. And, the first time that I presented to an entire company, I was nervous and my heart was racing, and I felt a little scared, but then I got to do it again. I went through it and it went well, and I got to do it again, and then I was able to make that leap from there to actually doing public speaking in front of conferences. And now I'm at a place where I am a lot calmer about public speaking. I always find the bigger or more important the room that I get into, the more likely it is that I will feel nervous. But I also like to draw on my competitive figure skating experience and think about how I felt before I went on the ice, and just say, the program's still got to start. Like, you go out there, you get ready, your music starts, and you go. And the same thing happens with talking in front of the public. Is once I actually start talking, I'm okay. I get in the groove.
Gotcha. Well, when you perhaps around the time when you were having a hard time speaking in front of the class, I was having a hard time skating on that damn ice.
Yes, exactly.
Like, why can't we do some soccer? Everybody kick a ball. Come on, man. Never know what to do with these skates. But yeah, so when it comes to putting your presentations together, do you have a process for that? And if so, what is it?
I do. So typically I start with brainstorming ideas, and I'll either do that, like I really love writing sticky notes with Sharpies and just like putting things up on a wall. So a lot of times I'll just sort of like write out a bunch of concepts, like, what do I want to communicate with this presentation or this talk, or this workshop? And I'll start by laying out a bunch of stickies, and then I'll sort of order them and say, okay, what might be a logical order in which to do this? And then I'll go through and identify if I missed areas, if I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover. And then from there, I start actually building out, a presentation. And with the presentation, I'm really visual. I really like to have my presentations have, a big, beautiful picture and like a title. For a lot of the slides. And then those are just prompts for me to remember what I'm talking about next. And then that way I'm able to just sort of authentically talk when I'm doing the presentation. And then I practice, particularly with other people. So a lot of times, I'll do the presentation first with one person, or I'll walk somebody through, hey, I'm working on this presentation. Would you mind taking a look at it with me? I'd love to get your feedback. And then I'll walk them through the presentation and share the different things and hear, what questions do they have? When does their face look engaged? When does their face look bored? And I'll use that to then iterate on the presentation and make it better.
Nice. Hopefully the people that you work with or that you use to practice your presentations aren't like me, because oftentimes my face looks bored regardless of whether I like the presentation or not. I got resting bitch face, I guess. I don't know. But that doesn't mean that I don't like the presentation at all. But you gotta ask me. It's like, how did it go? It's like, yeah, it was good. I like that. It's like, couldn't tell from your facial expressions, buddy. But yeah, absolutely. Holly, you did mention earlier that first presentation that you had to do at the company, you were scared. Is being nervous something that you still deal with to this day? And if so, how do you deal with those nerves?
Yeah, it is. I definitely have acclimated so that I don't get nervous as often about speaking, but I focus on my breathing, when I'm waiting for my chance to talk. I focus on my breathing. I try to calm my breath. And sometimes I'll just do something to distract myself. Like if I'm getting nervous because I'm thinking about the thing that I'm nervous about, then I'll just be like, well, I need to distract myself. Let me, read or talk to somebody, and use that to calm me down. And then, breathe until it's my turn to talk. And then once it's time to start talking, I usually calm down. So I feel better once I'm in the flow.
Interesting. So you talk to somebody so that you are less nervous to then get up in front of people and talk to them.
Yes. Yes, I do.
You're a very interesting person there, Holly. That's great. So then, okay, last question is for the people that are watching or listening to us right now, and they want to get better and become more effective at presenting in front of others. What tips can you offer them?
I think start small and work your way up from there is one of the biggest things that is really helpful. A lot of times I work with clients who are working on their presentation skills, and we always start by saying, okay, like what is an important topic that you should be talking about, that you should be sharing your knowledge about, that you should be teaching others about, and start with something that that matters, that's important to you, and that'll make it easier to talk about in my experience. So start small, start with something that matters, and then work your way up to larger rooms and larger presentations.
Got it. Well, this has been really interesting talking to you, Holly. I suppose I lied. This is going to be the last question. How can people get in touch with you?
So my website is H2R or you can find the Product Science podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And I'm pretty active on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn at Holly Hester-Reilly, or on Twitter at H2R Product Sci. So that's just ends in SCI. That's as much as I could fit in the Twitter handle.
Gotcha. Well, everybody, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. My name is Neil Thompson. You can find me at teachthegeek.com. Consider checking out the monthly membership called Teach the Geek to Speak Society. You can get help in your ongoing help in your public speaking journey. And that's, again, teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Holly.
Thank you, Neil.